in the spirit of an academic endeavor, why don't we start with a little pop quiz right here? So, what is the biggest pain point with teaching today's students math? Is it A, students are so into math that I can't even get them to leave class and allow my next round of excited students in to take their seats? Is it B, their skills are so advanced that even though the course is titled pre-algebra, I find myself teaching vector calculus? Is it C, they always keep their phones in their pocket, even when I want them to double check their answers on TikTok? Or is it D, they exert too much effort on their homework? Right, then this should have been a poll right here at the start, right here. So I think that this really bleeds into the question of what's the biggest pain point with teaching today's students math? And I'm not quite sure you need to be a rocket scientist to solve this one correctly. There's a lot of energy around how to awaken the passion, the curiosity, the interest, the self-motivated behaviors. And with that right there, I'm going to introduce to you our expert panel of folks who are having their cake and eating it too. So my name is Alan Satomer. I am the CEO of Mastery Coding. I come out of the classroom myself. I was California's Teacher of the Year once upon a time. And I sort of have all these kooky ideas about how engagement leads to motivation, motivation leads to comprehension, comprehension leads to performance, and you got to meet kids where they are and set them up to win. And with that right there, I reached out to a couple of folks that you're going to see today. We've got some esports coaches, some phenomenally talented, highly regarded esports coaches that also highly recognize the value of math inside of the games that they play. And that's kind of what we're going to make as linchpin today. So let's open up with just a couple quick hellos, maybe a moment or two about your own background. John, why don't you say hello to everybody and tell us, well, what's your specialty and what are you doing here? John, you're on mute, sir. We can't hear you.
Sorry, there you go. Sorry, my name is John Adam Simmons, and I'm a professional esports coach, player, all that jazz, content creator. I've been in the true esports world for about 10 years now. But as a coach, I had to try to learn how to explain things to my students, and I utilized math to do so. And with when I was able to meet within Mastery Coding, it just really it was a simultaneous bond, and it helped me be able to build out these the course on at least on FIFA and be able to develop through that. But I'm a esports coach, and I mean I studied computer science in college, so I've gone through some of the hardest, toughest math in schooling, and I utilize this math every day.
That's great.
Helps,
That's great. John's got a lot of great stuff he's going to share with us today. And then let's bounce over to Rio. Rio, how you doing today? Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what brings you here?
Absolutely. It's great to meet you guys. Thank you for joining the panel. My name is Rio Sparsteiner, which is just spear maker in Austrian. I do not have the expertise in math, or more, did not have the expertise in math that John did, because I flunked math. When I was just a youngster, I was like, oh, I don't want to know how many apples Mary is buying in comparison. It's none of that business, not having it. So I flunked early on. I got back into it. I passed everything. I was involved in education, though, in coding, in robotics and animation for a really long time. My family brought me up with it. But after playing video games for my whole life and being pretty decent at them, and being prompted by one guy to be like, just at least try coaching, give it a shot because you're good at education at least. I gave it a shot. It stuck really well. And then I found myself hopping into the esports world. And thankfully, with the support of Mastery Coding, I've been able to take on a more educational interest in math, because just as John mentioned, that math is there. And we've both had to learn it either by just like kind of observing or like strictly just going in and looking what the coach is doing. But with that, got a whole lot of experience in teaching students not only like how to do these cool moves in games, but how to read what's actually happening around them.
Yeah, and we're going to jump in. So we're in for a treat today. So let's start off with the research, right? Because I'm academics and things like that. People are, is this a research-based approach to tackling the challenge of engagement, and what are the priorities? So what are the top 5 reasons? Well, the research is, I don't think this is going to astound anybody. Students are declaring there's a lack of relevance. Like, where's the pragmatism? Boredom, oh my goodness, they'd rather go to the dentist because at least the dentist ends. Math class, you got it again tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day after that. Inside, we're going to talk about this idea of self-esteem, fear of failure, anxiety underneath, which is often triggered by a sense of low academic confidence right there. And this is a derivative almost of inadequate prior knowledge, because kids are not doing well in math early on, and then the math is getting more complicated, and the need for the foundational skills underneath, there's a dependency that isn't there, and it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So what we want to get into to start with is, like, we're facing a real issue right now. The NAEP scores are basically the nation's report card, and the most recent ones show some very, very important data for everybody to be aware of. We have just had the largest score decline in decades right there. And what makes it more troubling is that the students most at risk and most in need of not having their scores decline, the kids who are already behind, they're experiencing bigger drops. And obviously, the trigger for this has been the pandemic, shutting down schools, Zoom as a vehicle for teaching, remote, and things like that. But we're starting to see headlines using terminology like cataclysmic and a lost generation and things like that. And personally, for me, I'm like, this generation ain't lost yet, right? Like, we giving up, like, that is not accurate right there. We got to roll up our shirt sleeves. We got to get after, we got to go do something. And that is kind of what this is about, because the research, going back to data-driven results, clearly indicates that there's a corollary between student engagement and academic achievement. Now, once again, this is not Einsteinian theory here. The more you care about a pursuit, the higher the likelihood that you will do better at pursuing that pursuit. And it doesn't matter if it's making model airplanes, or if it is learning lacrosse, okay, or if it's basket weaving. If you really care about the endeavor, you're going to do better than if it's a mandated thing and you just go to the minimum viable amount of work to get in and get out right there. So the honest question that we have to look ourselves in the eye is, can math really be made exciting for kids? Or is this whole thing like putting lipstick on a pig right here? So with that, I'm going to toss it over and ask the question, John, tell me, sir, like, are we just making this up? Or can math, just give me 15, 20 seconds, can math really be made exciting for students?
It can, and it totally depends on how you engage with the actual student itself, and that's what I actively actually tried to do in my videos. I think we'll actually see that shortly. But to me, it's about getting somebody to pay attention with something they love, and that's what I see.
Right. So you're talking about like tapping the passion, right? That's
right,
it right there.
right.
Yeah. And Rio, how about you? I mean, you're a student, and it was very brave of you to admit that like you struggled in math class once upon a time. If you would have had like somebody using video games and esports to teach math, do you think that that would have captivated you and made you sort of awaken to some of the lesson plans?
Awaken is a great word. The kids are going to engage with something. John used the perfect word, is engage. They're going to engage with something, no matter what. And we are fighting a losing battle. It feels like one against COVID, against what you highlighted, against media, against TikTok, and like the 7-second attention span that we hear about. Just youth are disconnecting from so many important things around them, like math. So while we don't want to fight fire with fire exactly in that department, we certainly have to adapt, and we could meet students with what interests them, what they want to be drawing from. And in this case, if it's math, we can easily connect that with gaming. The skills that these kids need every single day can be found in even seconds of a whole number of video games that we'll be talking about.
Excellent. So let me do this right here, and let's show everybody kind of what we're talking about right here. So this is how John and Rio put their expertise to work right here. Check it out. All right, so that right there is a little taste of what gamer math is right there. And let's go into, so, what we're doing here is we asked ourselves, well, what if you could teach these standards-based mathematical learning objectives using the games students know and love? And that's what gamer math does. It is using today's most popular video games as a vehicle for standards-based math instruction, because kids are constantly doing math as they game. They're constantly evaluating probabilities and measuring up ratios and determining angles and seeking out patterns in relationships and so forth. So what I want to do is jump right now into a little bit of what it looks like and showcase some of the talents of our team right here and how we provide solutions that are going to allow you to have your cake and eat it too. So this is kind of the entire smorgasbord, if you would, of curriculum we offer. We jump into gamer math, and how it is composed is we've got units, chapters, and sections. Now, these right here are providing a scope and sequence, but they are modular. So if you happen to be teaching percentages, you don't need to have gone through integers and ratios in the number system to get there right there. You can just start with percentages. Having said that right there, though, once you are in any unit, these are sequential. And you do want to begin with chapter 1, understanding integers, before quite naturally you would jump into like chapter 4, comparing integers. So once again, these right here are kind of a la carte. You can pick and choose. You can match up with your teaching objective that you want right there. But anytime you're inside any unit, you would want to follow, because there's a natural staircase progression that we've built in. And then all of our learning modules are video based right here. So what we do is we believe in the power of engagement through meeting kids where they are, and they love the super exciting videos and the super exciting ways we go to bring games into the curriculum. So let's John, I'm going to kick it off with just a sample right here of you at work, and then I'll get you to give me a little commentary. So this is kind of how it would start off. Unit with login and so forth like that, your kids, and then here we go. Let's listen how John puts them on the hook and gets them going.
Hello and welcome to Gamer Math. My name is John Sims and I'm a professional FIFA coach, and today we're going to be understanding integers and how to chart them on a number line, distance between them, and why they're used in the world of FIFA. Let's get to it. Do you need math to become an elite FIFA player in the world of gaming? It's a really simple question. And the answer is yes, you do. You need it every minute, every second, every day. The second you turn it on, you need it. I promise you.
So what we do is there's a little introduction from our high energy coaches, and then we kind of show a highlight right here from the game. And then what we do is we break down kind of like VOD review right here. And then we start getting into teaching the math inside the game. So we talk a little bit right here, like John, maybe you can discuss for a moment how right here, for example, you're teaching about positive integers and why FIFA lends itself so well to students understanding number lines and things like that, and that standards-based math that they have to learn.
Yeah. So in FIFA, you're making calculations every second, and in every single video game, you're making calculations. Every single moment you're calculating. Now, are you able to necessarily put it down to pen and paper? Maybe, maybe not. But in analytics, when I go through coaching sessions, I actually truly go down into paper sometimes to talk about the actual mathematics. But when you are calculating, it's able to understand that like a distance from you is, you can use like units of measure, and understanding integers is a huge a huge part of it, because it tells you how fast you can do an animation, which animation to choose, and how to beat your opponent. And I like to say there's a language in math, and math is a language that if you can see it, you can feel it, and when you feel it, you can win. if that makes sense. But
that's great. So then, you talked about Ria, you made the comment about like apples and stuff like that. And John, I see that instead of apples or peaches that Sally goes to the market and buying, talk about sort of for a moment why you think, FIFA is a beloved game everywhere. Talk about how using sort of the animations from the game to teach math helps you teach the mathematical concepts.
Yeah, so essentially what I take here in like a distance number line here is the idea that I'm in the position 0, and maybe an attacker's in position 2 and a defender's in position -2, and so on and so forth. And so sometimes what I like to basically consider it is, you have to have distance in order to do certain specific animations. Different animations have speed, entry and exits, if you guys are understanding of animations. But an animation is essentially, the beginning of a move to the end of a move. And they all have different speeds and different types and hitboxes and whatnot. But with integers, it allows you to be able to take like a quick thought to be able to actually reference and understand how to utilize animations. It's one of the essential first concepts I teach in my actual esports coaching is to be able to actually be able to reference animation sets. And so it's a great way to combine both
Because
the gaming.
Yeah, the ball's always moving around on the field, right? And the
Right.
field is basically a number line in that right there.
The whole
So
time. Yeah.
So what it seems that you've provided is you're using great pedagogy by essential questions. You've got learning objectives right here. You speak to the integers in a game. You've got exit slips. And then I see that you've got the academic vocabulary right here. And it's both hard skills and soft skills. So there's an SEL component right there to the engagement, to the validation of the students and so forth right here. And then let me bounce over for a second. I want to go over to Rio for a second and show everybody a little clip of how Rio teaches. Once again, once you learn how to operate the LMS, it's very, very simple. It is replicated throughout. So it's like, learn how to ride the bike once, and then you know how to ride the bike all over our playing field, if you would. So this is Rio. And this is Rio, who is an expert Rocket League coach, and he would have shown a highlight from a Rocket League goal. It's all very exciting and so forth like that. But let's see how he's actually teaching the math right.
Okay, guys, so let's consider that exact same theme, but this time from a new perspective. We're going to look at it from top down. Now, let's take a moment here to consider two things that might seem a little bit off to a person who's played soccer or maybe even Rocket League before. Perhaps we could focus here. We can look here too. Does something seem off in these two spots? Think about it for a moment. Okay, maybe you spotted it. This ball here, it's pretty high in the air and hard to challenge. That's not super important in comparison to 1, 2, 3 teammates on orange who are challenging it and, 0 teammates defending net. What we call this in Rocket League terms is a bad commit or an overcommit. But in math terms, this is a bad ratio of teammates defending to teammates attacking. How do we combat this? So let's start at the beginning together then. What is a ratio? Well, super simply put, a ratio is a comparison between multiple quantities. We can write this out in a number of ways, but the one that we're going to start off with is one quantity with a colon between.
So I'm going to pause it right there. So Rio, first of all, how popular is Rocket League, right? Like how many kids are playing Rocket League right now?
You know what? While I'm answering this, actually straight up, there's a web gaming platform called Steam, and actively Rocket League hits the above 100,000 super frequently at any given time. At any given moment,
100,000 kids could be playing Rocket League right at this very moment.
And that's just on PC. That's just on PC Steam. That doesn't count several other platforms. So it's exceptionally popular.
Exceptionally popular. Okay. And Rio, so I mean, and we're talking about Rocket League is probably a top 10 most popular video game on planet Earth right now, I would imagine.
Esports wise, absolutely.
Okay,
it's up there.
So the population of the United States extrapolated right here, the chances that if you're a middle school teacher, for example, the chances of in your class there being one Rocket League player, would you say it's a 1% chance, 5% chance, maybe a 98% chance? Like what do you think right here? Like,
well, given that the game is easily accessible again on several platforms, it's free and it's so darn popular. If you've got a classroom of 25, 30 kids, there is pretty easily 100% chance that you've got at least one, but I'd say several. They're everywhere.
Amazing. So then let's go back to ratios. So it seems as what you just said in the video was that you use the term overcommit or a bad commit. And what that is that's the language of Rocket League, but it shows that kids understand what you're talking about because what you're speaking to is this is a bad ratio right here. And am I clear that what you're doing is you're just building a bridge to the academic vocabulary, but they already understand and are applying the concept? Is that what's going on here?
Absolutely. What's actually happening really often, and John mentions this briefly, but very often when we're developing our skills and like as a player or as a coach, when we're taking deeper account of what's actually happening in the game, we structure so many things around the math that's happening. And very often we start off with the math terms and have to translate it to something that's a little bit more popular or fun or easily digestible for the people that we're coaching. But it almost all of it originates in math. So yeah, absolutely, that's happening.
Yeah, John, do you find yourself same thing? Like, you guys already understand this math.
Yeah, what's funny is I actually use this exact format in FIFA as well, understanding ratios, because I like to say you have to win with more players forward, and you have to get goals. That's how you do it. And to understand just the balance on a game, you have to understand different concepts. And so what I've noticed is a lot of these intertwined between each other. I think Rio could probably agree with that as well.
That's
Absolutely.
great right there. So then one of the things is that we're obviously we're as you saw with John, Rio is going to use real world examples from Rocket League and demonstrate them. It's kind of an I do, we do, you do format right here. Okay, where he's calculating it right here. And once again, we're not using apples, we're using octanes right there and Dominus, and we're using the actual terminology that the kids love right there. And then what we do is we provide formative assessment right here. So there's two sides to this. There's the teacher view, which you can see right here. So what Rio and John have done in building curriculum is they do not expect the facilitator to be a FIFA player, a Rocket League player, okay, or Minecraft, etc. Like, they not only ask the questions and have provided self-grading assessments, but they've given you the explanation to all the answers. So when you look at this right here, and if a kid asks you the question, you're not going to get jammed up by not understanding the games that they know and love, which I think is a really, really important thing I'd like to speak to in a second, because when the students jump in, they are going to take the quiz, right? And then basically it's self-grading quizzes, and they choose an answer, and then they go next, and then they sort of choose an answer, and then they go next right there. I think it's that one right there, and so forth. And then it's going to populate an online grade book right here. So you get the scores, and you can see and disaggregate students individually. They've added a nice wrinkle where they're using the standards of mathematical practice, and they're incorporating discussion, which can be speaking, writing, reading, and listening right there. So there's all kinds of tools available. But essentially, I think that I want to go back to our expert coaches, and I want to kind of ask the question once again from a different angle, which is, are we putting lipstick on a pig, or are you finding that the more math you know, the better gamer you will be? Are we just saying that, or is that really true?
No, I mean it's 100% transparent within my gameplay. I'm gonna probably touch this on this later. I have an individual slide that I'll probably go a little bit more in depth. But I was just thinking, as we were seeing that with the octane and utilizing some vocabulary, one of my biggest struggles growing up in school and math and academia is being able to connect the vocabulary to what's actually happening. And I actually at one point was going to go into medical, and so I took Latin in my later years of high school just because I wanted to help my understanding of that vocabulary. And I actually found a huge connection to this, because when I am a coach, I am trying to teach these students, and I didn't understand when I first started coaching how to explain what I already knew as a coach. But once I started to use math as a language to express that, that's when it became a lot easier for me as a coach to teach it. And I just know from the vice versa, coming from the students aspect, they are able to bridge and connect, to draw both connections, and then have a resource to think back on if they are taking the example, if they are taking the quiz. Because I know some students most likely know what's happening, they just don't know how to express it. And so
Mm.
I think this is a great way to create a connection.
Rio, would you say that, like I said, is it a true statement that the better you are at math, the better player you will be of Rocket League?
Absolutely. Every single game that we play out there is structured around math. It's built upon coding. Coding is math. So whether or not these kids or any player who is taking gaming seriously, whether or not they either know it or want to acknowledge it or don't, or want to fight against the current, they are under influence. The influence of what's happening in the game, the math. So the more they know about it, the more they understand the rules happening in the background, the simpler it will be for them to manipulate them, to take use and make the most out of what is available, what tools they can just make use of.
Yeah, well, and I think you sort of had a Freudian slip with under the influence, because we got to admit it, these kids love gaming, right? And that's like the energy. We're channeling students' passion for gaming into academic achievement right here. So that sort of leads us to what Gamer Math provides is sort of a turnkey award-winning curriculum that you get standards-based units with the professional development included. As you saw, it's video-based right there. The scope and sequence is provided. The assessments are self-grading. We're using Into Through Beyond methodology. There's a GRR framework right there. And we've got our own LMS and so forth. And these are the games that are available. So how does it get implemented in the classroom? Well, it's meant to be a multi-dimensional toolkit. So you might be using it for supplemental instruction. You taught a lesson, but you want to reinforce it right there in some way, somehow. It could be used as a tool for remediation right there with kids who are like, they just didn't get it the first time, and you want to have them be re-exposed to the standards-based principles, whether, like I said, it's integers or ratios or whatever. It could be the number system. Everybody knows, if you're in teaching and learning, about you got to hook kids. Like, how are you going to hook kids? What we've seen with Gamer Math, we see kids going ahead to the next units, which is why our LMS, we had to put a little teacher optional lock on it, because there were kids, like, they finished their work and they just want to go to the next one and the next one. Like, they're down with this right here. And it's kind of a rare phenomenon that you see kids wanting to go ahead in the curriculum on their own volition, okay, just because they just want to see, like, the videos, where does it go, what are the highlights and things like that. It can be used as a tool to cement knowledge after you've had, like, the teacher leads a discussion at the beginning of class, and then this is a reinforcement. It's summertime right now, we got people using it as summer programming. After school or extended learning can be used right there. And then, of course, intervention. So there's a lot of different ways Gamer Math can be used in the classroom right there. If you have any questions, obviously we're available to answer them on that front. I want to go into kind of math and maybe the future of esports right now. So we're seeing that there's an immense growth, popularity, and so forth like that. Rio, is this kind of where we're going right now, where you want to talk about kind of
I think this is actually what I was going to try to dive into.
Oh, I'm sorry, John. Can
no worries.
you
Yeah. So
yeah.
what I like to say is, there's rapid growth and popularity in esports. And so what I mean by that is, over the past 20 years, it's been just growing rapidly. Right. And, at one point I used to play a lot of sports. I still play a lot of sports, but I like to say esports isn't everyone's sport. Basically what that means is every single person can play esports. And so this, everybody can attract to esports. I know that, my 5'8" frame was kind of destroyed my career as an NBA basketball player, but esports is a place where I was able to find that competitive spirit. And actually, I don't know if it will let me click on the next, there's another.
There we go.
And so what I like to try to bring up is, it's in everyone's sport, and the future of, like, actual true esports training. So I have trained players from a very low level to even to the top pro FIFA scene and community. And what I like to say is I'm utilizing math to do that. And what I put into my coaching of the future of esports is basically understanding that, the NBA and esports is, esports is just like 30, 40 years behind where the NBA kind of is now. If you look back at, the 1960s, 1970s and the growth and explosion of, that type of sports, because 100 years ago, sports weren't the same. And we're seeing that through and through. And so what I'm trying to get to, I guess, is basically nowadays for basketball and other sports, these kids are training at the young age. Ever since they even touch a ball, they're training, and they're training more analytically, more in depth. They even create a whole definition in school called sports science. Well, this is what I consider esports science. There's just not a name for it yet. And so what I like to say is this is the language of the esports science, and that's how because you're actively using your subconscious to make a connection to math. You're all the time. I mean, calculus is all through it, and so you can take it all the way up to wherever you want to take it, and you can go in deep and dive into as much definition as possible. And that's where I see, this involvement going, especially within esports. And I guess the last thing I was going to say is when it comes to esports, the amount of growth can be exponential to actual like physical sports. And the reason why is because if you go and you try to kick a soccer ball, you kick the soccer ball and you make a mistake, you have to go run it down for a minute. But in esports, you can train and you can practice and you can get 1,000 reps by the time you get that like one kick. And so the amount that you can learn and the amount of opportunity to have repetitive information is where I see that. But that's just kind of a
it's crazy, and it's true. Brain-based learning right here. Rio, talk about Rocket League a little bit, right?
I believe John was actually going to be handling his slides, covering first, or
no, that was just
awesome. Okay, cool. All right, so Rocket League, goodness sakes, let me yammer about this. So just a couple of images displayed are a couple samplings of what we cover. We actually saw briefly a couple of images similar to these, but we actually talk about in these, we talk about what's illustrated is, for instance, boost pads, because in real life, there are boost pads, but in Rocket League, you get to pick up these little circles that make your car go supersonic speed. We love that. Kids love that. I love it too. Anyways, while it's more fun or exhilarating to collect the big boost pads, for instance, that yield 100 boost per pad, for instance, over the smaller pennies, they're called, for 12, it's actually they're not nearly as efficient or effective to pick up. You want to pick up a lot of the small ones. Even as they coach players to play in the top 1% of the world, they still focus on taking the big ones too often. So we've started simple here, proportional relationships or tying resources available into the game. But while sure this association with Rocket League is fun to learn math with kids, it becomes way more important in most situations in the game as we amp up the complexity. The two lower images showcase pathing and getting value, where we amplify later in the same lesson. Actually, we cover the ratio of boost to how far one can travel while in the air with that boost. Its practicality is increased tremendously and helps challenge students' understanding of efficiency instead of just wasting time, instead of gathering one resource that we don't need and simply scoring more goals. And that's just within one lesson. I love that one so much. Anyways, Alan, could you click one more time for me, please?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So for Smash Bros, shielding is a fundamental part of the game, a skill that I push all of my students that I coach to learn to go pro in Smash is how to apply and pressure and break shields. Math is super involved as always, as we'd hope. And it helps players take their gameplay to the next level, where in one of the many lessons that we cover in percentages with Super Smash Bros. Is that we often need to determine a percentage of a number that isn't 100. We don't start with 100 shield. We start with 50, for instance, and every second it loses as it's held out 10 of its total HP, or 20%. And our learners are taught to recognize how much percent of power remains in a shield as it's held up and how much we do to it. and players that understand the exact moment to jump in, to land a strike that will do that last 20% of damage needed to break the shield without actually really risking anything. That's that huge step forward in neutral play and some really complicated stuff that happens in Smash Bros. But additionally, chopping down, reevaluating, comparing, and otherwise just utilizing percentages is huge for kids in their day-to-day lives. And it's just a couple of very small examples that we're aiming to accomplish with the program, and we're all doing it through the exciting and tangible world of gaming.
I love how you guys both sort of like, I'm with you, I'm with you, I'm with you, and like I am, but I'm not, because I'm not a gamer, but I can just feel that the truth under which your speech is that, like, math matters. Math matters, and these kids, they're so passionate about the game. I mean, they're hiring each of you to professionally coach them. They have dreams of superstardom, and they're not going to be realized without math. We use Minecraft also right here. Minecraft, for those of you who haven't heard of Minecraft right there, best-selling game in history, 238 million copies, 140 million active players a month, over 60% of kids, like, the numbers are insane. My daughter is currently home right now from summer camp. She's in the other room, and she just said, I'm like, shh, I got to do a webinar. And she said, shh, I'm on Minecraft. She's in the other room, but right now on Minecraft right there. Why don't I have that big a problem with it? Because she's constantly building, and she's constantly actually understanding these concepts of creation and the geometry and things like that. Like, she is so much more ready because to pursue when she gets into these lessons of understanding the concepts underneath, because Minecraft and Minecraft EDU is just a phenomenal learning vehicle right here. So, you know, in a big picture way, we live now in a world where all of these companies are running on math right there, all of them. Our approach with everything that we're seeking to do at Mastery Coding, at the US Academic Esports League, and so forth, is to channel students' passion for the video games into career and college readiness. And there is a proven pathway where you sort of start, meet kids where they are, you lift the hood, as you've seen our two experts today do on the games, you teach new skills, and this can push them forward into industry-based certifications, into their own badges, into their own degrees. And they literally, we're talking about a universe of opportunities for careers, because esports it's a multi-billion-dollar enterprise right now. It spans and touches so many different things. So I want to say, once again, I want to say thank you to Rio, thank you to John for joining us right here. We will take a moment to see if there's any questions. You can throw them in the chat for us. I will say that I did mention that anybody who would like a complimentary demo account to jump on in, kick the tires, play around, see for yourself right there, nothing up our sleeves. We believe in it. We know the kids love it and things like that. And we deliver on all the promises we've brought to you. So before we exit, let's see here. John, let me toss it over to you. Got any final parting words here for today's webinar?
Oh, you caught me by surprise. I don't know, Rio, do you have anything planned? Well,
You said nothing up our sleeves, but Alan, we do have something up our sleeves, and it's math. It's gamer math. Absolutely. No, I'm just really stoked. I've been able to work with Mastery Coding and these fine gentlemen for a while. And like, again, starting off at the point where I flunked math, I had no interest in the content that was being put before me, because none of it was really applicable to what I was facing in real life. I don't want to worry about a train going from Timbuktu to Tulsa and meeting another one on the way. But what was relevant for me, and what John already spoke about, is when I was able to apply what value math brought to me in gaming, that's where, or more anything that I'm passionate about, and kids are passionate about gaming. When I was able to see that, I started teaching math when I flunked it. That is the difference. So I just really want to like emphasize just how stoked I am personally about this project. I come a bit more of an outsider to mastery coding, but being involved in this has been really exciting, and I'm just stoked about it. That's all. Those are my
Oh, that's great. Well, we really appreciate the passion, the energy, the good work that you and all our curriculum writers bring to the content. So for Rio, for John, for myself right here, for Mastery Coding and Gamer Math, I want to thank everybody for showing up. You can obviously find more information at masterycoding.com. We're easily reachable and accessible, and everybody have a very nice day. Thanks so much for joining us.